Let's react to this video by Madisyn Brown. It's called When Trying to Be Beautiful Makes You Ugly.
I feel like I've talked about beauty and filler and plastic surgery and Gen Z's relationship to beauty and beautification countless times, but it seems like it is going to stay relevant for a long time, and there's always something new to discuss in the discourse.
You know, beauty has always been very relevant. It's just that I feel like people didn't always talk about it so openly, and there weren't as many options for addressing things that maybe people didn't love about themselves. Now we have a lot more options. It doesn't mean that they're all good options, but and it doesn't mean that someone has to do something, right? So there's a lot to discuss, and there will be a lot more to discuss in the future, of course. But now there's just a lot more that we're exposed to, and that includes the skincare products that we see on our shelves, and I'm partially to blame for that with my products, right? But it also is like the different types of non-surgical and surgical procedures that are out there. It's also just, social media and information spreading more easily, and there's just a lot more of it, and people just being more transparent and open about things that they're getting done.
I want to talk about Love Island, Erin Moriarty from The Boys, and just the culture around beautification and how it seems like the harder you try to be beautiful, the more people shame you for it, and how the pursuit of beauty seems to be this double-edged sword. This is what happens when trying to be beautiful makes you ugly.
That's interesting. I mean, I think, again, a lot of this stuff is very subjective, and we talk about not chasing specific trends, especially if you're going to do, like things to your face that you cannot easily reverse. So you have to be very thoughtful about anything that you might consider doing to address something about your body or your face that, you want to essentially adjust or modify. You have to do it in the right hands, right? And that is all very important. But even if you do everything properly, you've done your research, you've gone to a great, let's say, provider, whether it's an injector, a surgeon, you've really done all the right stuff. And let's say you end up with the result that you love. There will always be some people out there that think that you shouldn't have done that procedure, or that you look worse off now than you did before, even if you're in love with it, and even if most people think that it was very well done, right? I mean, just look at the comments of some of my videos, right? Especially the celebrity analysis videos that we do. There's always going to be someone who says something negative, even if the majority of people think that the person looks great. And they can look great for not having had much done, or they can look great because they had a bunch of procedures.
Beautification culture has reached an all-time high when it comes to the normalization of cosmetic procedures, plastic surgery, filler, even Ozempic, down to looks maxing.
Yeah, like looks maxing is usually geared more towards men. And it's basically just guys figuring out that, hey, we can do certain things too, to our faces usually, or to the body as well, to to look and feel our best, right? So why should it just be for women, right? For a long time, things like makeup, things like certain cosmetic procedures were sort of more in the realm of, this is something that only women get. And now it's like guys are discovering that I, also care about my skin, or there's also, something on the face that I want adjusted, or I feel like I'm too short, and there's like leg lengthening surgery out there, right? So guys are entering the mix, and I think that's where like the looks maxing terminology sort of came from.
Even getting down to the nitty-gritty micro beautifications like beauty maintenance and the importance people hold on beauty maintenance, like getting your nails done every week, microblading, skincare, things like that.
And this stuff gets expensive, right? If you're doing all this every week and you're replenishing your serums and your moisturizers, the cost really adds up. And then you got to save up for the Botox and the filler and the different lasering machines, and you've got surgeries that cost an arm and a leg. I mean, all this stuff truly adds up.
It's not just the things that we consume, the things that we buy that makes me believe that we have this extreme obsession with beauty now more than ever. It's also the way we talk about beauty, and how Gen Z specifically on social media likes to make trends out of beauty confirmation. It's not just how you dress, it's also like the shape of your face. Do you have the negative canthal tilt? And if you have this canthal tilt, that makes you fox pretty or bunny pretty, girl pretty, boy pretty. Like there's all these different sorts of categories that women are trying to fit themselves into online, or at least take these categories and assign it to themselves.
Yeah, and then you have some people who are naturally in one category, and yet they're trying so hard to fit into a different category. But that's going to require a lot more procedures, a lot more work to become like something that you weren't never really born to be, right? So I think in many cases it's easier to accept the initial category that you're naturally a part of, and then maybe do some tweaks or whatever to enhance the appearance if you want that, but not trying to turn yourself into a whole different category. That's part of the problem. And then also to her point about how, influencers, I think, are playing a big role here these days with, all these products out there, and basically jumping onto one of these products because, look, sometimes they get paid, from selling a product. The companies that make the products are partially to blame for all this too, because, they're trying to use influencers to make their content about their products go viral. And, again, I'm on the other side of this too with my brand Feel Confident, right? So I understand, the desire to want to push product and increase sales. But, in many ways, we're also adding to what I think is, part of the complexity here of confusing people about what they should and shouldn't be doing or using, or, maybe it's better to just leave everything alone. But surely, it's difficult in this day and age to do that.
I feel like the reason why people are so obsessed with categorizing themselves and defining every inch of their body is so that in a way they can feel more comfortable in their skin, and they can like do all the right things to make them look the most attractive, because it seems like the bar just keeps getting higher and higher.
I mean, yes, part of the goal is to definitely feel more confident and comfortable in our shoes, of course. And I think, improving our appearance helps sometimes, to arrive closer to that destination. But there are a lot of other things that go into that equation. And I think we need to spend even more time about our internal framework and surrounding ourselves with the right people that love us sort of no matter what, right? That's ideal. And also keep in mind that there might be things that we want to tweak or adjust, but not have everything hinging on that adjusted look, because the people who just chase appearance and are not working on their internal self, I think ultimately still end up unhappy.
We all kind of want to look the same. That's why we have things like IG face, and that's why filler and all these trending surgeries are popular, because we're all trying to be the most beautiful version of ourselves, but in that pursuit, we're all kind of looking like clones.
And we have a video about that as well, how people are starting to look more and more alike. And I think some of it is the actual procedures that people are getting that are moving everyone towards a more common denominator, for sure, regardless of our starting traits and regardless of our like ethnicities. Certain procedures just have a tendency to create a certain look. So we are, like kind of averaging out to a common type of appearance. I mean, I think there's a lot of truth to that. So it's like, how do you find your unique self in all of this, and how do you promote that, and will people accept that? I think are all big important questions. And it's something that for me, when I lost like all my hair from my autoimmune condition, it took some time, to like accept the new appearance, but I had to accept it for myself, because it's like I knew others weren't going to just accept it, right? And I continue to get like ridiculed and stuff like online, because I do hair restoration surgery and yet I have like no hair, right? So naturally some people don't understand that, and maybe poke fun at it. Me and my own daughter will sometimes call me, Gary Baldhead, right? Which, it's like a funny, but sometimes, it can be a little hurtful, which I've told her, but yeah, I mean, I think first you have to accept yourself, and then those words of others then mean a little bit less. But that's not easy to do. And I know I had to work on myself to gain that type of self-acceptance. And that's important. I think everyone needs to continue to work on themselves to, inch closer to that.
Filler and the kind of uncanny valley IG face thing is going away, and people are developing this disdain for that look, and natural beauty is in. Natural beauty is cooler now.
Yeah, I mean, thank God for like us moving away from this overfilled type of face. I mean, that was getting out of control, and yet, again, like there's so much forward momentum, it's hard to like get off the conveyor belt, right, and take a look from the outside and say, whoa, whoa, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe we're dumping too many syringes of filler into the face and creating this kind of enlarged, over inflated type of face. Yeah, maybe we should slow down with that. And I think finally we figure that out as a community, and are definitely doing less, and realizing that less is more, with especially with HA filler, especially because it kind of lingers around, and we have a video dedicated to that as well. Yeah, so for sure, sometimes it's the community that comes together and says, whoa, 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 maybe we need to take a different perspective on this.
Aside from just the natural progression of how trends come and go, I think people are starting to embrace natural beauty more and condemn fillers, is because we're starting to see the long-term effects of fillers and what it does to your face. People are saying, oh, Gen Z ages like milk, and I don't think it's because there's anything different about our skin or the quality of life or whatever. I think because we get filler. Like Gen Z and millennials get a lot of filler, and so we're seeing young Gen Z women who are like in their early 20s looking 10 years older because they're getting work done that women in their 40s usually would get. I also think with like social media and stuff, young girls have more resources to appear older online. I say online because I think for the most part, like if you're looking at a 16-year-old girl, let alone talking to a 16-year-old girl, you're going to catch on that she's 16. But the internet's a different place. You can kind of manipulate your images and make yourself look older.
Yeah, but the other issue now is that we have these AI type of images, right? We have like completely fake bots that exist, right? Where they're not even people. And then you have all these filters and ways of modifying the image. We don't talk about this often enough, but even like makeup has advanced, right? Where there's so many ways to create so many different types of looks to maybe look a little bit older, a little bit more attractive, however one wants to define that, but or maybe like a little bit more risque, right, with the way that makeup is applied. So all these tutorials are available online on YouTube, right? And so people are watching that, they're making that part of their routine, and they can really manipulate, how they appear to the public, in the types of images that they post, even without any prior work.
But that's why these women do it in the first place. It's like they want to be considered beautiful because that increases their social capital, because beauty is currency. And if you're not tiptoeing the line right enough, you are going to be condemned and ridiculed either side you fall on. Would I be lying if I said, oh, I don't think filler has any negative effects on someone's appearance? Yeah, I do think that if you are getting too much filler too young, it can do damage to your face in ways that you probably don't want.
Well, filler at any age can be potentially problematic, both in the acute setting when you're actually getting the injection, right? Things like vascular occlusion, skin necrosis, those types of issues, nodule formation, but also like long term, as we talked about before, filler fatigue, overexpansion of the tissues, and just not looking natural. So that can be a problem in youth, but it can also be a problem later in life.
50-year-old women get filler to look 40, and now 20-year-old women are getting filler and look 40. And I do think that is kind of true. Like, it does age you, it does make you look older if you are getting too much filler and you're also like too young to be getting it. I think Gen Z took the whole preemptive Botox thing way too seriously, and just, yeah, we can just get as much work done as we want on our faces, on our premature faces, because it'll like pause the aging process.
Again, small quantities of some of this stuff is not necessarily problematic, but what happens is people come in with one complaint, and then if they're with a provider that's, doesn't really care per se for that person and is just trying to sell product, well, before you know it, they're dumping lots of product into the face. I think small quantities of some of this stuff, like Botox, some filler, is not necessarily an issue if it's addressing like an actual real concern and something that's kind of worth addressing. And there's subjectivity to that, but there's also like basic ideas of aesthetics. So I think you need to go to a provider who understands that, and is not trying to kind of just oversell you on stuff. But that's not easy to find, right? Because aesthetic procedures or aesthetic medicine is essentially in the realm of like making money, right? It tends to attract a type of person that likes money. And then, you have like a smaller percentage of providers that, yeah, they like running a business, they're entrepreneurial, but they actually really understand aesthetics, they care about aesthetics, they care about their patients so much, and they would rather have less money and do the right thing by patients rather than just more money at any cost, right? So I feel like I, fall into that category. But it's hard to find because by the nature of the kind of the field or the specialty, it's outside of the realm of insurances and it attracts a certain entrepreneurial type of spirit. So sometimes if that trait is too strong, it can overpower one's desire to, just do the right thing and stop patients when they're going too far with some of these injectables or with surgery. So it's quite complicated, and I think it's hard for patients to kind of find the right provider.
What happens is like when you're pumping your face with so much filler, eventually you're going to stretch out the skin in your face and you're going to rely on the filler to keep your face looking full. Whereas someone who's in their 50s and, they've lost the collagen or whatever, they have wrinkles, they have more of that like empty space in their face, they get the filler to fill the face and then it reduces the fine lines and wrinkles that they have. So it doesn't make sense to like stretch out your face just to give yourself wrinkles and then you just have to keep getting more and more filler so your face isn't like falling off of your skull. I just feel like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think a lot of the reason why people get filler is because they do feel like there's something wrong with their face.
I do think that there are too many young people who are getting these types of procedures. I do think that if they waited longer, they would realize that they probably didn't need, said procedure. It can be tough, because if they're coming to you with a specific concern and you feel like you can address the concern, sometimes it's tough to just tell them, well, no, because of your age, right? I mean, assuming, they're of the legal age to make decisions for themselves. But sometimes that really is the right answer, especially when it comes to surgeries. I think that there's a lot to be said for that. Just giving it more time, just because they might decide against it, even a few years, out from when they first see you. It's worth being more cautious with the younger patient for especially something that's difficult to reverse.
And I think a lot of that comes from the internet. Like there's things that I think a lot of women didn't feel insecure about. And then they went on the internet and someone was like, do you have this kind of eyebrow arch? Do you have a full face? Get this, what is it? The buccal fat removal.
Or don't get the buccal fat removal. Check out my video before you do that surgery.
These procedures do have long-term effects, especially if you're doing it over and over again. You know how I know this is like a trend that really is out the door? Is because celebrities are also being like, not only am I admitting to getting filler, I'm also not getting filler anymore and or dissolving it. Courtney Cox, Ariana Grande, even Kylie Jenner has said she has dissolved some of her filler.
Yes, but we have a video about how even after dissolving your filler, it never quite goes back to the same face.
It's not cool anymore. And it sucks when everyone's like, oh yeah, filler isn't cool anymore, but you've still got it. You still got it stuck in your face and you're like, oh, okay, now what? And when it comes to people on Love Island, like, yeah, of course most of them are going to have filler because they're on TV. And a lot of the people who are on Love Island were influencers before they started or want to be influencers after the show. So when you're someone who's involved in entertainment, whether it's TV, film, music, social media, when you're on camera like that all the time and you're in the public, you're way more likely to get fillers and surgeries and all these things done to your face and body, because that's supposed to help you leverage your career. It's supposed to help you get more opportunities if you're more beautiful.
And I think it also helps people stand out, right? And sometimes that's a good thing, but sometimes it's not. But like, if they want to be that special, A-list or whatever, type of celebrity, usually you kind of have to have some distinctive features. At least that's kind of how it's been historically. So, if they look like kind of have a very average face, right? They could be very beautiful, but maybe it doesn't stand out as much. So then they get these like big prominent cheekbones or the little tiny nose, to kind of stand out from the masses. But sometimes that can create like a caricature type of appearance to their face too. So it's tough though. There's a lot of pressure on folks who want to be influencers, especially on TV, and continuing to grow their careers in that way. They sort of want people following along, and sometimes even bad publicity is still publicity, right? So even if someone is critiquing their appearance, at least they're like talking about them, right? So there's that side of it too that I think we need to remember. So, but in general, I mean, I think we should just all be a little bit, more kind to one another for sure.
Just in general, I think when you're on TV and you're constantly looking at yourself, or you're on camera in general, like you see yourself way more than other people maybe see themselves. You're looking at yourself far more than the average person with a mirror and like maybe a front-facing camera on their iPhone. Like myself included, I'm a YouTuber. I'm on camera all the time. I'm constantly looking at my face on Final Cut Pro. After a while, you start to see things that maybe you wouldn't have seen before because you just spend so much time with your face. People are commenting on your appearance way more because you are just exposed more.
I always get the, "Doc, where are the eyebrows? Where are your eyebrows?" But, just watch that video on the homepage of my YouTube channel to find out where the brows went.
With social media, it's become so normalized to get all this work done that everyday people feel the need to get fillers and Botox. Like your local bartender literally has like 12 syringes in their face. And it's just like, why? I feel like we live in a culture now where it's like people say, oh, love yourself on the surface. But the real messaging that's happening is, oh, you have an insecurity? Go fix it. Because you can. There's a solution. Filler, Botox, Ozempic, whatever it is. There is an easy fix for any insecurity that you could possibly have.
I wouldn't say easy fix, but there's usually some way to address, most insecurities. But again, yeah, I get her point. Like, should we be addressing them at all? Or should we just like live with it? And, maybe, learn how to better process our own thoughts and feelings about how we look and how others perceive us. All of that is very valid, but I think there is some also validity to, when something is adjusted, people respond to us differently. We feel differently going into, various situations, with like a, an updated version of ourselves. So all of that is true too. So it's complex.
Yes, Kylie Jenner and her family members created this unrealistic beauty standard because they as women got work done on themselves as individuals and promoted this kind of lifestyle and this beauty standard. Their individual actions had an effect on the collective. Now, obviously the Kardashians are way more influential than the average person. They're massive celebrities, but it does trickle down. And then it's like, let's say if I have a group of girlfriends and like one of them gets Botox or filler, the other ones are more likely to think, oh, well, I guess that's fine because my friend did it, so I should do it too. But it would be hypocritical if that friend with the Botox was like, oh my God, love yourself. You don't need it. But it's like, well, you got it. So what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, well, that's the problem though with a lot of the celebrities, including the Kardashians, is that they'll give you like some of the information, right? Like, oh yeah, I had some filler, but they won't give you like the full picture. Where it was the filler, it was plus maybe 10 plus other surgeries, right? So yeah, so I think withholding information or partial information can be problematic. But then it's also like, people should, have the freedom to their privacy, right? Like, I mean, even if they're celebrities, they should be able to say, hey, I'm not going to tell anyone about certain procedures or any procedures. And, that's their right as well. So Yeah, it's complicated. This stuff is not so black and white. There's a lot of gray area that we often don't get into because it's so complicated, but I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Dermatologist Dr. Brooke Jeffy adds, there's a growing segment of the population who seek out cosmetic treatments because they look unnatural. Looking like you had work done, she says, is the point. They want to have that look to fit in, for people to know that they can afford it. It's a status symbol.
There's some people in certain countries I've heard where they might wear a cast on their nose, even if they've never had a rhinoplasty, just to show that they have enough money to afford a rhinoplasty, which is like a super bizarre concept to me. But I think if you're living in a society that wants to kind of show off that wealth, and in your circle that matters, I can see why maybe people would do that, but most of us would be like, oh, that's bizarre, right? But yeah, it's kind of like a symbol of wealth to a degree, right? Just like people decide to wear really expensive jewelry or a watch that is like a known expensive watch, so people know, hey, I have a super expensive watch on my wrist. So it's kind of maybe to that effect, but I think it's a little bit more dangerous, because you're getting procedures that are maybe difficult to reverse. But yeah, there's definitely some element of just being able to access it, afford it. Yeah, that's a big part of this, as well.
Only rich people get work done, which isn't necessarily true, because I think the people who get this like really poorly done work on their face are kind of skimping out and trying to get like a discounted version of these fillers because they want to participate in it and try to look a certain way and look like they come from a certain background, but they can't actually afford the good doctors, so they get botched filler.
One time this dude I was talking to said that I looked poor because I don't have any filler, and that he normally only dates girls with filler because they look rich.
When it comes to messing with your body, don't try to be frugal, because you're always going to regret it. Like, please. Of all the things to try to save money on, your body is not the one. But I also believe that like you can pay a lot of money and still get really bad filler or bad work done. It happens.
Yeah, because there's a lot to consider, and sometimes it's also the way the body reacts to the product or to a surgery. For example, when we do any type of surgery on the face with an incision, there's going to be a scar, and how people heal depends on, of course, the surgical technique, but it also depends on how the patient takes care of the area after surgery, and it depends on their inherent qualities of healing, that will also dictate the width of the scar, the quality of the scar, and we have a whole video dedicated to scarring, so you can, learn more about that process. But yeah, there's lots of variables to consider. It's not always just like the doctor or the provider that you went to.
It's like Erin Moriarty from The Boys. I don't know if y'all have ever seen that show. Great show. You should watch it. But one of the lead actresses, Erin Moriarty, who plays Starlight, has gotten a lot of backlash because of the plastic surgery she's gotten recently. And, she does look very different. It's very obvious that she's gotten work done. And Erin responded to this: we're all subject to levels of bullying throughout our lives, but I'm horrified, and I felt like I deserved to take a second to address these things. To learn the widespread nature of this has left me horrified. I think it is a shame that, she felt like she needed to get this work done because she looked great before, but I think that also speaks to what I've been saying throughout this whole video, which is like she was responding to the society and the world around her.
And we have an analysis video of Erin Moriarty if you want to watch more about that.
And she's also an actress, and she's in the public eye. She's on camera a lot. People who are on camera a lot tend to change their faces after a while because they feel like it'll improve their career, or it'll make people like them more, or whatever the reasons may be. It'll make people say less mean things about them on social media, whatever.
That doesn't usually work.
The pressure to be beautiful feels like it's stronger now more than ever. All this surgery and fillers and stuff is just another form of conformity, which all humans do. We all conform in some way or another. All these women were little girls one day who never had any negative thoughts when they looked in the mirror, never had any thoughts about their appearance until they grew up and they were told to change themselves. They were told the things to change, they changed them, and they're still called ugly.
I think we just have to balance this conversation with understanding that, a lot of people who get this type of work done, whether it's with surgery or non-surgical procedures that they do end up feeling more beautiful, right? And feeling more confident. So that I think is an important thing that's maybe missing here, is like the overall satisfaction rate is quite high. So how do we reconcile that with, of course, some people getting way too much work done and being still unhappy with their appearance? I think that's what we need to try to do. There's always going to be some tension there, but again, I don't think these procedures are going anywhere. So I think it's like, it's a powerful weapon, and we need to learn when to use it, when not to use it, and how it may fit into our lives, if at all. And what I often say on my channel is like, if you're totally comfortable in your shoes, at whatever point in time, then you don't need anything, and you could just keep living your life and enjoying all the moments of life that you can enjoy, and that is totally cool, and that's awesome. And many people watch my channel just to kind of learn about what's out there, but they're not actually interested in doing any of it. And other people are trying to figure out like what, can they do to address a specific concern. And that's okay too, as long as they do their due diligence, do their homework, spend some time thinking everything through, find the right provider. All of that stuff is so important so that you can stay safe and hopefully enjoy your outcome and not be saddened by it and not look like a caricature of yourself. It's all just tools, and we just need to figure out how to use these powerful tools if we want to use them at all.